We need a promotion system that moves people up through the GS scale and allows them to get into management. That is one of the priorities, is workforce diversity and workforce staffing.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Our guest today is Brian Kelly. He is based in Michigan. He's an EPA worker and vice president of AFGE Local 704, representing 1,000 EPA workers in the Great Lakes states. He's also been an emergency responder and done work in the South responding to Katrina and Rita, anthrax, the BP oil spill, and more. So, as you can tell, he's a busy guy. So, Brian, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob, Adam, thanks for having me on. I'm a relatively new listener to your program, but that's only because I didn't know about it. You know, I thought your guest a couple weeks ago talking about climate change and class warfare. I mean, I thought that was really, really good talk. And I've really become educated on the United Mine Workers strike there. I think it's at 436 days. My people come from Harlan, Kentucky, the coal fields there, and the steel mills, the Ohio Valley. My grandfather was a lifelong railroader. My wife's family works in the auto industry. So I am very much in solidarity with industrial workers. I have contributed to the strike fund down there. And let me say clearly that the EPA workers at 704 support the mine workers on strike there. We are absolutely in solidarity with them.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. And the mine workers have, I think that there's been a lot of support from potentially unexpected places, maybe at least unintuitive places. The Sierra Club wrote a $10,000 check to the Mine Workers Strike Fund. Energy Alabama has donated a couple $1,000s, which is a renewable energy group. The Starbucks baristas that are unionizing in Birmingham have been to several of their events, and the mine workers have been to several of their events. There have been, there has been a lot of support from working people for the miners, and like I said, from some potentially unintuitive places, and that has been really, really heartening to see. I love to see that and see people recognizing that we've got way, 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 way more in common as working people. Even if we, even if I work in an office and you work in a coal mine, like we've got way more in common than the people above us, than our bosses.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I'm based and live in Michigan, which you would call me a what?
A Yankee. You're a Yankee.
That's right.
But the good
like
kind.
Yeah, you're a good kind. You're not a Yankee capitalist. You're a Yankee worker.
That's right. That's right. The workers are united, right? That's what we've got to do. And, Warrior Met Coal and BlackRock, BlackRock controls the investments that we have in our retirement, in our 401k type investment. And it's an insult to us that BlackRock is the one that was chosen to manage that TSP fund. That's just horrendous.
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree. BlackRock is very bad. But the people on the radio station one of the radio stations that we're on is a conservative radio station, and the people there seem to think that BlackRock is this socialist, communist, radical, liberal, crazy lefty people, which is
it's interesting. As you mentioned. I'm the vice president at AFGE Local 704. We are not a partisan organization. We talk to people on both sides of the aisle, and we can sometimes come to some common ground. Maybe we get there at different ways, but if we both can agree that BlackRock is no good, then I'll take that. And I've met with people on the right, congressionals that they understand the science of climate change, and met with people on the left that said that they're pro-labor, but where are you? Why aren't you showing up?
Right, exactly. I definitely, you got to take wins where you can get it. I was talking to the other, to the president of the EEOC Council for AFGE, Rachel Schonfield. And she said that one of the people that really helped them fight back against the proposed cuts from the Trump administration was actually Richard Shelby from Alabama, which was, kind of fascinating and good to hear. So definitely, we have to take wins where we can get it, and I do try to make it a point to highlight when Republicans do, because for one, it's pretty easy because it's so rare, but but when Republicans do something that's good for working people, I definitely want to highlight it and encourage
absolutely.
more of that. So I wanted to get you on the program to talk about the EPA negotiations and some of the fight that y'all had as EPA workers with the Trump administration, and even to a certain extent the fight that y'all are still having to have against the Biden administration. But before we get into that, just give us a kind of an elementary explanation of the EPA. What is it? What do y'all do?
Yeah. So, do you guys know who created EPA?
Richard Nixon, right?
That's right.
That's crazy.
Richard Nixon. Environmental protection has not always been so partisan. I mean, you look at major environmental progress under the Reagan administration, you see President George H. Bush talk about internally, at least, about climate change. There were major improvements to the Clean Air Act under George H. Bush. So it has not always been partisan. But backing up, so Richard Nixon in 1970 created the Environmental Protection Agency, and the mission is pretty simple at the top. Ensure that Americans have clean air, clean water, and clean land. I mean, that's the mission. Congress writes the environmental law. EPA then develops the regulation that implements that law. Now, what most often happens, though, is that EPA will set a national standard, and then states and tribes will then implement those standards. So there in Alabama, you have the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, which would be our colleagues there that would implement those federal rules. So that is it in a very short nutshell.
Gotcha. And so what were some of the, I mean, we can imagine that there would be a conflict between the Trump administration because, unfortunately, protection of the environment has become more of a partisan issue over time. And so we can imagine that there would be some conflict between the Trump administration and EPA workers dedicated to the vision that you just laid out, dedicated to a vision of protecting workers, protecting communities from the tyranny of bosses and corporations who do not care about their workers and the communities that they're in. So, what were some of the highlights of the conflicts that y'all had with the Trump administration?
Yeah, I mean, it was really unprecedented. I've been at EPA for 20 years. Under both terms of George W. Bush, the two terms of Obama, and the Trump administration was unparalleled in their attacks on federal workers and specifically EPA workers. They imposed a contract on our members without negotiations. It was a very punitive contract. It limited our ability to use official time. It cut us off from collecting dues from members. It was so petty that, they threw us out of our office in downtown Chicago. We could not even put a bulletin on the board in the lunchroom. It was very, very punitive. But I have to say, though, that, it empowered a lot of us, though. It did not cower us in the way that I think they meant to do it. I mean, I have been a union member for my entire time at EPA, but I wasn't really out involved. I mean, like you said, I do a lot of emergency response work. I'm traveling, but I really felt like this was too much. So, we fought those illegal orders in the halls of Congress, talking to both sides of the aisle. Again, without the support of Republicans, we could not operate at EPA. Without the support from both sides, the union couldn't make progress. And so we fought in the halls of Congress, in the media. We had worker actions that we would show solidarity. We went to the Federal Labor Relations Board. We fought each and every day to, represent our members. And really, it culminated in that turning point when the Biden administration came in. They signed executive orders that rolled back those illegal directives from the Trump administration. And, I was very, overwhelmed and pleased to see that, the executive order that Biden signed says it is the policy of the United States to protect, empower, and rebuild the career federal workforce and to encourage union organizing and collective bargaining. I mean, that's just been, a phenomenal statement coming out of the administration. Now, that it's still not been easy. It should be like the president says that we should be rebuilding the career federal workforce, that it is the policy of the government to encourage union organizing empowerment. But, we still have the same managers that were there under the Trump administration that very quickly, they quickly imposed those unilateral contracts. They very quickly kicked us out of our office. They very quickly moved to cut off our dues, to reduce official time. They moved very quickly to do that. But now that the Biden administration is saying that, hey, we're going to take a different direction, they're very much slow rolling those things. They are not acting with that urgency that they did when they were trying to, really control us.
Right. Why do you think the Biden administration is allowing that to happen?
I wish I knew. One of the things that we do is every year we go and meet with our congressional representatives for almost all of Region 5, which is those Great Lakes states. And, I ask, members of Congress, why do you think this is happening? Why aren't we making more progress? And, I don't really know. I was talking with the national president of AFGE, Everett Kelly, and, talking to him like, why aren't we making more progress? And, I have not gotten a real good answer about why the Biden administration is not, fulfilling what they say that they're going to do. They said empower unions, assist in organizing. Why aren't they doing that? I don't know.
Right. Well, and so your some negotiations for the EPA begin tomorrow, and some of your goals for these contract negotiations are to try to put some of the to try to do everything you can to insulate yourselves from another Trump administration, right?
Yeah, so a Trump administration specifically, but whether the president appoints the head of Exxon or the head of the Sierra Club, right? We don't want bias injected into what the agency's mission is. So we're looking at a number of things, and it's one of the things is about like workforce and diversity. EPA, a lot of people think EPA is this huge organization that has inspectors all over the place, but EPA is tiny. it is only 14,000 employees. That's the same level as 1988, and adjusted for inflation, EPA's budget is still at 1980 levels. And you look, yeah, and the U.S. economy is twice the size as it was in 1980, but we're still doing the same level of environmental protection. Actually, we're doing a lot more. The bipartisan infrastructure bill reauthorized the Superfund, which cleans up contaminated sites. 14 of those are in Alabama. The removal of lead service line. There are millions of lead service lines, or the cleanup of PFAS. So there's only so much you can do with, do more with less. We are, very thin on staff. We're very underfunded. EPA's budget is $9.5 billion. And most of that goes out to the states to implement their programs. So it's a tiny amount. And then we're looking at the fact that about 58% of current EPA staff can retire in the next 10 years. And that includes me. I'm going to be eligible to retire in 10 years. And we need to rebuild the career federal workforce, as the Biden administration said we're going to do. And also, when we're doing this, we need to make sure that EPA's workforce is reflective of the public that we serve. Currently only about 20% of top EPA positions are held by people of color, and that needs to change. We need a promotion system that moves people up through the GS scale and allows them to get into management. So that is one of the priorities, is workforce diversity and workforce staffing.
And you also mentioned, I'm sorry, Adam, were you about to say something?
No, go ahead.
You also mentioned when we were talking the other day about getting into your contract a scientific integrity clause. That sounded pretty cool.
Yeah. So, that's what I was mentioning earlier, like whether it's the head of Exxon or Greenpeace, we want the science to speak for itself. And we are looking to be the first union to have a scientific integrity article put into our contract. And, that would mean that, it would insulate it from bias. It would be able to reproduce the science, and then even have a neutral person that we could appeal those decisions to. Some of the articles that I think, you and I passed back, there were this huge rollout or rollback really of environmental regulations under the Trump administration. And some of those were done ignoring the science or manipulating the science. There is a great 9-part series in The Intercept by Sharon Lerner talking about how EPA managers overrode their own staff and their assessments of risk of new chemicals. I mean, it's a fascinating series. I encourage people to read it. It encapsulates really, how under the Trump administration, industry captured the agency. I mean, regulatory capture is the term of it, where, the people that were running it, EPA, were running it for the best interests of industry and not the public. So, there's this crazy term in that 9-part series where EPA managers called special cases hair on fire. Like, we need to get this chemical approved right now. And in the emails, they're like, we've got a hair on fire case. You need to get this chemical approved now. And the staff is saying, we have evidence that this causes cancer, that we should not have this chemical out there. And you have EPA managers just lining out the risk of it and pushing it through. And that's where we've got to stop. We cannot have that happen, and that is something that we feel is critical to get into our contract. We had a kickoff meeting last Monday to rally our members, to get to tell them what we have at stake. We had Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was there, and then Tim Whitehouse from PEER, which is the Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, and PEER is the one that's representing the whistleblowers in that article that Sharon Lerner has out there.
Tlaib has been a pretty big ally for y'all in Congress. Is that right?
She absolutely has been. Under the Trump administration, when they have, we're taking these actions against us with the unilateral. When I had an office closer to where I live now. Under the Trump administration, they chose to close that office and move me further away. She was an advocate trying to keep that office open. She was an advocate in Congress for worker rights. She shows up at our rallies that we put together, during the budget shutdowns that we had under the Obama administration. She came out and rallied with us. And it's been Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Dingell's been great, Congressman Levin, who has been down there to support the strikers the unionizers in Alabama. We've got some really great congressional support in Michigan for our union.
That's great, and I didn't mean to, and I wasn't planning on asking you this, but you don't have to answer if you don't want. But Andy Levin and Rashida Tlaib are both facing primaries from more the Democratic majority for Israel, actual Republican funders, Bakari Sellers backed PACs are trying to primary both of those folks. How's your union and the people in Michigan responding to that?
So I can tell you that our union has come out and endorsed Rashida Tlaib, and we have endorsed Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. So those two we've already endorsed. I love Congressman Levin. I also love Congresswoman Stevens, who are in the same district now. So it's a tough thing there. But we've come out very strongly for the second election cycle in the year for Congresswoman Dingell and Tlaib.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully they are able to. Hopefully they're able to prevail. How are you feeling going into contract negotiations on Monday?
That it should not be this hard. That it should not be this hard when you have the backing of the President of the United States, and you can hold up an executive order saying that the agency should encourage unionization and organizing. So it's tough. One other thing I want to talk about with the contract, though, is climate change. We believe that, and you don't have to just take it from the EPA union. The Department of Defense calls climate change a direct threat to national security. And
the woke liberals at the Department of Defense, right?
Right. Yeah. They're not known to be a bunch of tree huggers over, in not Quantico, but Lejeune and, things like that. But we have to act now just to even limit the effects of climate change. And we want President Biden to declare a climate emergency so that he could use loan guarantees for renewable energies, that we can, reduce the carbon footprint at federal agencies and, the projects that federal agencies outline. So, we believe that climate change is an existential threat to humanity. At the same time, though, that we believe that you have to take care of the workers that will be affected by this and bring them along, as your guest said a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Right. Couldn't agree more. And hope y'all are able to secure something like that. You said you're based in Chicago?
So our union is based in Chicago. That's where the region's headquartered, but I'm outstationed in Michigan.
Gotcha.
Because I'm part of the emergency response staff. We've got emergency responders that are based, so Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. I responded to Ida last year. I was down in New Orleans working for the Corps of Engineers, not the EPA, but the Corps of Engineers for the Ida response. So had So different response team, but kind of similar stuff there. Maybe I can swing by your office's headquarters in Chicago while I'm there for the Labor Notes convention and get one of those nice hats.
Absolutely. Nicole Cantello is our president. She would be happy to meet you and to bring you up. So, we finally did get our office back after, and this is crazy, the Biden administration, I'll say again, told the agency to take back all those illegal directives. We were supposed to get our office back, but we were forced to fight through arbitration to get back what we were owed. I mean, it's disheartening, and we're going to fight like hell coming up on Monday, but it's not going to be easy. It shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I appreciate your time. Keep us updated, and have a good rest of your weekend. Rest up for Monday, okay?
Yeah, Jacob, Adam, thank you. Solidarity to all of us across the nation.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Best of luck.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Yes, thanks.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fg.